All right, so we got another user posting here on Discord, and we're going to go through a few key things analysis-wise for this swing. The first one is going to be just how flat the takeaway is, as well as when we get into a very flat position, how that has a tendency to allow our lower body to over-rotate, and some of the issues about having too much rotation in the swing. This is definitely much more of a modern approach to the golf swing and actually delivers the ball in a pretty good spot. But unfortunately, because we have such an overswing, we're going to get stuck. So the first thing is our overall swing is very flat, as I said. And so if we draw just a couple of plane lines here, make it a little bit more apparent, our set was pretty good. I think the driver might be a bit long for this player in particular, but if he stood it up, it might hit him in the chest. And so sometimes we have a very flat swing. That can be definitely something to consider, as well as the flatter we get, sometimes the swing speed comes down a little bit. And so taking a peek at our shaft stiffness might be something to look into as well. As we start to head back, we can see how inside and underneath the hands get on the plane. And at our first positional check, our club is well below our knees at this point. And so we're well on our way to a very flat black swing. And so as we start to come forward, we can see how our lower body starts to really twist, and we get to a very shut position here. Our lead wrist is very flat and kind of correlates with the face angle here. And so we're at a pretty good spot overall to be able to deliver the club effectively. Unfortunately, we have a tendency to continue to rotate and overswing, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I've ever seen a swing with so much rotation. So kudos for that flexibility this guy's got. I think a face-on view would definitely see us starting to lean towards that target, or at least our chest coming back on the right foot and our back leaning back towards it. And so if we come back to a point where we're going to take a peek at how this over-rotation gets us stuck. And so if we put on our little body image here, what we're looking for as we're going back here is our right elbow and the bottom one in particular. So we're going to keep an eye on that little blue dot there. And the other thing we're going to look at is our spine angle, which is this dotted line going up here. And so what we want to see as we're coming through the downswing is that this elbow starts to get in front of our stomach. And so if we have too much rotation and our lower body does a lot of rotation to get through and to clear, but we don't have an effective way to get our upper body through, basically the amount of motion that our upper body has to move is much more than our lower body. And so we end up getting to what we call a stuck position. And so we're going to see here is this blue dot still well behind our spine. And as we come into the hitting zone, we're going to see how this stays consistently behind the spine, and we're not even trying to get it out in front of us yet in order to release. We tuck it in pretty well, but as we start to come into impact, it's now just starting to get there. And so with this position that this player is trying to get to is much more of a, hey, we want to use our lower body to rip through as much as we can. We're going to get to a very flat position, so I don't have to worry about the face or the hands at all. And I'm going to try and let the lower body do as much as we can. Unfortunately, because we have such a swing that gets us so flat, we are trying to actually slow our hips down. And so our hips aren't able to squat or load up and then push up off the ground because they have to move so slowly to clear and then basically just wait for the upper body to try and come back through. And so we're going to see as we come back, if we get to the top where that red line represents kind of like along his belly button. And so when we get to the top of this player's swing, what we should or we want to see is a little bit of a dip below that line with the lower body, and then to really get our weight shift onto our front leg. And because that doesn't happen, we end up just having this kind of spinning out process where we actually start to move towards the golf ball. And so I think what we're working with that yellow bucket in front of us here is that we're moving so far towards the golf ball that we don't want to come over the top. And so this tee isn't perfectly on his glute, but we're going to see how when we start going forward in the swing, just how much those hips start to go forward instead of basically squatting and rotating. And essentially now we're standing up as we get into impact. We get to a rotated position, but unfortunately we're so laid off that our only chance here is to hold and pray.